All right, in the 51-year history of the Mr. Olympia, 13 men have held the title. And that number, for at least another year, is going to remain at 13 because tonight here at the Orleans Arena in Las Vegas, Phil Heath, for the 5th time, has been crowned Mr. Olympia. I'm Dan Solomon along with Peter McGough and Shawn Rhoden, and history was made. Phil Heath picks up number 5, leaving him 1 shy of Dorian Yates, 2 shy of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and 3 shy of the all-time record. And gentlemen, a lot of opinions and a lot of emotions in that arena tonight.
Well, it's interesting because when you go to the boards, we experts don't really know what we're talking about. We called it for Phil Heath yesterday based on genetic structure, based on maturity, based on experience and aggression. All of those things tied in to what he brings to the stage sets him apart from the rest of the pack, and it carried over tonight. Couple of surprises, but one of the surprises was not Phil Heath walking off with number 5.
Well, we're going to talk about those surprises, but sticking with the champ, you know, I spoke to a few judges sort of off the record over the course of the day, and the prevailing wisdom, and I know a lot of the fans had differing opinions. Some felt that Shawn Rhoden could have won. I've heard a lot of opinions in the favor of Wolf and even the runner-up Dexter Jackson, but what we were hearing over and over again about Phil Heath is that among those 4, he has the fewest things wrong with him.
And that's why he won. I mean, from every angle, he's got something going on for him. He's got the shape, he's got the full muscle bellies, he's got the thickness from the side. You know, he's not lacking anything, carbs or anything like that. And as Shawn said yesterday, you know, he wasn't at his best, but we picked him as the winner. And, you know, we did get a lot of flack for that. Now, I must say to people out there, you're obviously entitled to your opinion in a sport that is ruled by opinion. That's how decisions are made. But we make our opinions up based on how we see it, not for any ulterior motives to the powers that be or political sway or friendships we have with the athletes. If we were sort of biased, we're all MD, we would have been saying Wolf or Dexter would have won, but we didn't. We said another guy won who's with another magazine. So, you know, disagree with our opinions, but don't question our integrity. I'm sorry if that sounds pompous, but that's the way I feel.
Well, you know, and it's a fair point because the thing about these bodybuilding shows is they look different from every possible angle. I mean, they look different. I was not in the first row tonight. I was about 15 rows back. It looks different on the judges' table. It looks different on the monitor, and it looks different in the photographs. And at the end of the day, it's going to create a whole bunch of opinions. But there seemed to be some anti-Phil sentiment in the days leading up to the contest.
You see that with Floyd Mayweather. I mean, when you're that good, people are waiting for you to get knocked off the top. The longer he does what he does, the more you're going to find the crowd sentiment cheering for the underdog. That underdog just happened to come in the form of a 45-year-old former Mr. Olympia champion in Shawn Rhoden. I mean, people love change, and they would love to see an upset. I mean, every athlete worth his weight. When Mike Tyson got knocked out by Buster Douglas, it seemed like everybody jumped on the Buster Douglas bandwagon. Phil Heath is a solid, complete bodybuilder. That's why he won. And like you said, Peter, we don't have to defend the judges' decisions that we have no input on. We were watching behind the judges' table, and they collectively, once again, decided that Phil had the fewest flaws, and he was the more complete bodybuilder.
The final 2 men were standing, and incredibly, at 45 years old, Dexter Jackson is back among the top 2 bodybuilders on the planet. And it was interesting because we were sort of trying to figure out where they all fit in between Rhoden and Wolf and Phil and Dexter. What was the thing that pushed Dexter above the rest of those guys?
Similar to Phil, that, you know, he was the next one with the least flaws, and he was in condition. You know, I mean, Wolf has his problems, and Rhoden, you know, he's not very thick from the side. I think that counted against him, and he didn't, you know, emote enough. He didn't get stuck into it. I will say one thing, you know, we may be reaching the point where we have to call Phil Mr. Saturday Night, because he makes a habit of leaving the door a little bit ajar on the Friday and then slamming it shut on the Saturday, because he was much better tonight. You know, he really did put it together. Back double biceps was the best on stage. That might not have been the case last night, but Dexter, you know, forget about Olympia titles. Let's just call him the most extraordinary bodybuilder that ever lived.
And I think that's well said. You know, Shawn Rhoden ends up finishing 3rd. there was a lot of you out there who thought he could have won that.
I was one of the guys that had him up top 2 yesterday.
Yeah, and I don't know that you're wrong for feeling that way, because he had an extraordinary showing, and on many levels and then from many angles, he was the best bodybuilder on that stage for parts of the show.
And you can't take anything away from him. I mean, yesterday he was battling for the number 2 spot. I thought Dennis Wolf was battling up there too. So it just goes to show you, when you have a 2-day event and they say 50% is on Friday, 50% is on Saturday, things change. And by the end of last night, we knew that the 2 guys, probably the most experienced, would be Dexter and Phil, and it worked to their favor.
Fair to say, Peter, that the most disappointed guy in the arena tonight would have to be Dennis Wolf?
Yeah, I mean, Dennis was a bit flat last night, came back in tonight a bit fuller, a bit darker, looked more competitive. And I think his disappointment stems, partly obviously from the result, but he put so much into it. Even Jay Cutler says he's the hardest working bodybuilder there is. He lives, breathes, and all the rest of it. And he was a magnificent crowd favourite. I mean, the boo fest that happened when he got 4th, and the big cheer when he saluted the audience, tells you where the popularity is. But it's physiques that win contests, not popularity.
People have been waiting for the arrival of the Egyptian phenom, Mamdou El-Baye, Big Rami. And while there have been some criticisms over the physique that he presented, some people have suggested that he's not quite there yet. I know, Peter, you felt last night when we talked about it that there was improvements, but he wasn't quite where we were hoping that he's going to get. At the end of the day, Big Rami is now top 5 in the world.
And he stands alone. I mean, there was no one that was going to knock him out of that 5th spot. We had him in 5th. We still want more from him, but he just brings too much muscle for the guy in 6th and 7th place to knock him out of there. And if he continues going the direction he's going, which is up in placements, and he matures, he doesn't have a whole lot of experience as a bodybuilder, period. How long has he been doing this? 5 years? What he's doing is nothing short of amazing, but he's going to have to back up off of those thighs just a little bit, and he's going to have to start working on refinement even at this early juncture. Can he move up? Certainly can if Dexter decides to step down. But Dexter said he's not going anywhere until someone wants to pay him to do what he does,
And tonight, Dexter picked up $150,000. Worth mentioning, Phil Heath won an Olympia record $400,000 first place check. One of the great stories, though, once again, Branch Warren back in the top 6.
Yeah, I mean, Branch looked very, very good in certain angles, side on. His hams are striated, he's got a good side chest. But the torso was just not there. And, great that he got that position, but I would have seen a couple of more guys ahead of him today, in all honesty.
Well, there seemed to be a bit of a battle between Branch and Rulli for that number 6 spot, and of course it went Branch's way.
Well, Rulli gave that door open for Branch. I mean, Branch has that gnarly look to him, not very pretty, but again, Rulli didn't bring the detail that he should have brought, and he also didn't control the stomach the way that he should have. I thought there would be more progress from Rulli. Everyone did here, and yesterday he opened up the door a little bit. He had 24 hours to resolve it. It didn't happen, and Branch came in a little bit tighter, and for that, it was rewarded.
Really seemed like a golden opportunity for Rulli, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, last night, he came in, the stomach wasn't there, he's got all that muscle. So, he just needs to sharpen up a bit and concentrate more on what he's trying to do. He's obviously enjoying himself, but it's time to get serious and get in there. Now, on the $400,000 prize money, I mean, I don't know what the logic is to that. I mean, it's $300,000 is a lot of money. 400,000 is obviously more, but I would have thought that money would have been better used giving something back to the fans. Do a prize. It doesn't sell another ticket. It doesn't raise the prestige of the contest. But make that 100,000. Make it a fan prize. A holiday in Vegas, training with Mr Olympia, whatever. Something that's fan driven that gets more people interested in the sport.
Yeah, and I whenever I hear about the increases in the prize money, we go back to that unforgettable night in 2008 when Ben Weider stepped to the podium only a few weeks before he passed away, and he pledged to continue to keep this prize money growing and growing north of $1 million. And so whenever I hear about those increases, I can't help but think how satisfied Ben would be.
And being a former bodybuilder on the stage, forget giving it to the fans. Give it to the athletes. I want to see that thing get to $500,000. And at the end of the day, these guys will work harder.
I never knew you bothered about money, Shawn. This is a new one on me.
Let me just tell you, this is a business, and when that thing hits $1 million, which I thought it should have when AMI got sold from Joe Weider, these athletes will train a little bit harder and be a little bit more focused. And right now, Phil's doing the business, and not one bodybuilder on that stage is going to complain about the increase in the prize money.
Well, one bodybuilder that shouldn't be complaining about anything is a guy who kind of had a bit of a career night tonight, William Bonac.
Yeah, I mean, that was great to see him moving up there. When I saw him in the top 10, I thought, great, it's top 10. And then, what did he finish? 7th, 8th? 8th, yeah. So he was the breakthrough athlete of the weekend, really. He's got another gnarly muscle individual. And he did fade a little bit. You know, when he first comes on, he's all pumped up and everything's big, and then it fades a little. But great to see him, and he's got a great attitude.
Victor Martinez, good to see him back in the top 10. He finishes 9th. Issa Obaid rounds out the top 10. Of course, a lot of excitement for the Olympia 212 for the 4th time. Flex Lewis picks up the title there, and a lot of speculation that this might be his last go in the 212. But he stepped to the mic at the end and said that he is now planning to bring his unborn child, who I guess will be born by then, November this year, with him when he collects a 5th title a year from now.
He must have he must have saw Sergio Oliva on stage with his kid, and that's an incentive in and of itself. He won $40,000 here tonight, but if he's driven by having his daughter or his unborn child on the stage with him, it's going to be very hard to beat him next year for number 5.
Congrats to Flex. I have to ask the question, Peter, because I know a lot of fans are asking it. If Kai Green showed up, where does he fit in tonight?
Well, we'll never know. He could have been 1st, he could have been 24th. You know, as it was, he was somewhere off in town doing whatever he wants to do. You know, like I said last night, Woody Allen says 80% of success is showing up. He didn't show up. End of bloody story as far as I'm concerned. Back to the prize money. The 212 guys are tremendous. The quality and depth has always been there. Maybe that 100,000 should have gone to them, you know, because they're rewarded scantily in relation to the top guys.
We might have to have a roundtable discussion on the allocation of the prize money. That's going to be another segment. The Olympia is now done. The stories now for the next 12 months as we look ahead based on sort of what played out here, the emergence to some degree of Big Rami, Dexter back number 2 in the world, Kai sitting the contest out. We'll always wonder how that might have played out. Phil Heath showing once again for the 2nd straight year some chinks in the armor, some vulnerability. What are the storylines as we look ahead to 2016?
They're going to be answered in 1 week from today when we head over to the Arnold Classic Europe, put on by Rafael Santoja. This will be number 5. Phil Heath will not be there. So now we're going to find out what these professionals can do in front of a different panel of judges, a European panel of judges. Rhoden may simply come ahead of Dexter. There's the rubber match right there. Dennis Wolf could leapfrog over both of them. This story is still has yet to be played out. We've also got Prague following that, and they're all in the same boat, traveling overseas, having to adjust their diets, and also trying to go for that paycheck.
Peter, you've covered 30-some-odd Olympias, and there's probably no one with the ability to put it in its proper perspective the way that you do. So I'm going to let you have the final thought on Mr. Olympia number 51.
Well, I think, you know, Phil, by cementing that 5th Sandow, is moving ever closer to, you know, maybe breaking the record. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, we thought, well, 1-2 seemed a long way away. Excuse me. He's a lot closer now. And I think we have to give him his due. I know he's not popular with a lot of the audience. They don't like his attitude. They see him as cocky, whatever. But it's a bodybuilding contest. And I think you've got to recognize him as one of the greatest of all time because he's got the whole armory there. He's got all these weapons. And that's why he can come in at 90%, then ratchet it up the next night and still win, you know, which is depressing to the other guys, but that's the reality.
Phil is a special champion, and for at least 12 more months, he will sit atop the throne.
And, you know, it takes me back to when I had my first Shawn Ray Pro-Am Classic, and Phil Heath was the winner right after he won the USA Championship. So I have a strong affinity that he continues to do the business. I continue to be a fan.
And you made a great point about the adjustments, and we're going to wrap it up in just a second. You made a great point. Comes in on Friday night a few years in a row now, looking a little off. Hani Rambat and they made the adjustments. They fill out, and they come in looking better on Saturday night. And in the end, when you add it all up on the score sheet, it was enough for Phil Heath for the 5th time to retain his title. I want to thank a lot of people who really worked hard to make this possible. Jordan on the other side of the camera, and of course Steve Bleckman, our entire team at Muscular Development. A lot of time and energy, and of course David Bay and all the great work he does, and Adina, really the whole team. Just so much goes into bringing this coverage. It's a very interwoven process, and I know a lot of time and money goes into making this possible so that you all at home can experience this without having to get on an airplane and fly to Vegas, but we encourage you to do that as well. But for Shawn Ray and Peter McGough, I'm Dan Solomon. That's going to wrap up our coverage here from Las Vegas and our coverage of the 2015 Joe Weider's Mr. Olympia.